We are blasting off Outliers. Hi there, Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. And I say us because today we have four incredible outliers joining us to share on this Outliers Edge Roundtable. They're going to share their experiences, they're going to share how they're seeing the world, and ultimately we're all going to uplift each other as we up level as well. So without further ado, let's go and meet our esteemed guests. Let's start off with you, Jocelynn, then we'll go over to you, Marc.
Yeah, I'm Jocelynn. I own a marketing company called Market You Factory. We specialize mostly in digital marketing, social media marketing, and standing out by just being a bit innovative. I have a podcast called the Art of Conversation podcast, which truly started as a way of me testing out some marketing things by being the face of that with a friend of mine. And that performed very well on social media, and I learned a lot from it. And yeah, season 2 just ended, and we're waiting for season 3.
All right, well, here's to all those seasons. Glad that you're here, Marc, and then Magdalena.
Yeah, my name's Marc Wendt. I run a coaching business that serves executive coaches at the intersection of emotional intelligence and masculine leadership. But oddly, about 20% of my clients end up being women. Masculine energy is not the provision of only male-bodied people. I have a podcast that is not related at all to my business. It's called Moped Outlaws, and it's a deep dive into what drives people and what makes them them. And it's conversations, and I love doing it. It's a great way to decompress from being involved with helping create solutions for really powerful leaders.
Glad to hear, Marc. Thank you so much. Magdalena and then Brandi.
I love the name of your podcast, Marc. My name is Magdalena. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. I have a coaching and conflict resolution business. I'm a certified conflict mediator and transformative coach. I work with startup founders, co-founders. Conflict is the number one reason that startups fall apart. So I'm really keen on supporting the kind of changing that statistic and helping people not lose money, quite frankly. And I too have a podcast that is called MJ's Magic Hour. Season 1 wrapped a little over a year ago. I got pregnant and had a baby, so I've just kind of been easing back into work and trying to figure out who I am again and where all of that kind of fits together. So if there's a season 2, I'll let y'all know.
Thanks, Magdalena. And Brandi?
Hi, my name is Brandi Sanders. My business is called Disrespectful Ass Life. It was birthed out of yes, it was birthed out of my own personal wellness journey, and the business really started out kind of weird, where I was selling fitness related things, waist beads and such, because it started as a fitness journey, and turned into more of this wellness journey, where I also shifted my attitude around being a disrespectful ass wife. And it has turned into coaching for women and some men, which is interesting for me too, Marc. But it has really been a true gift. And I have a podcast of the same name, where I talk about my own trips and falls and successes, and talk with others about the same. I too wrapped up season 1, had a baby. So crazy, Magdalena. And I'm trying to figure out, trying to find my way back into the podcast, which I really, really enjoyed. So I am hoping to relaunch in January.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you for showing up as leaders in your world. Thank you for allowing life to keep going. I'd say life happens and life always wins. And I want to explore that here because yeah, we'll be exploring a number of different things. But I think this is a really important component for any outlier that's listening through. And you're like, how do I get back in the game, or who am I now, and so on and so forth. So I want to go and explore that. Thank you. I want to start off here with just Marc, you brought it in, and then Brandi, you also put a marker on it with that element of hey, this is I know who I market to, I know who my avatar is and what my niche is, but there's actually more than that comes into my world. So Mark, I want to start off with you because I think that like outliers, there's a lot of outliers that are like, if I choose a niche, if I choose an avatar, I have this brilliant gift that I could give to everyone, and I'll be like, too restricted, or like, or I won't be able to talk to anyone. So can you speak to like your experience with this, and like how you came in and said like, this is where I want to be, and I'm also still open for other things. You mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah, succinctly, I'd struggled at the beginning of launching my coaching business with this same problem of I have so much to offer, as you described, and I really did not want to confine and narrow and get refined in it. So I resisted, and it cost me. But over time, I actually relaxed into an understanding of my own personal journey, which was about being the kind of man that showed up in the way that men need to start showing up in our culture now, with more EQ, more capacity to be a good listener, as well as things like provision and protection and the traditional masculine values. And as I realized that I was on that journey, it became clear to me who I served as a result. And that's where the clarity started to come in. And then, of course, I just dropped in, and things start happening at that level.
Thanks, Mark. Brandi, I'm curious for you. How did it evolve for you? And then, yeah. Let me start with that, Brandi. Let's get to you first.
Yeah, as I mentioned, so it really started as this fitness thing for me, and I started getting so much feedback from folks about the other parts of my life that I was sharing out. And so what I realized is, I don't have to, I realized that I didn't have to be one or the other. This is a whole, we are whole people, and so for me, my different clients can come from me for the fitness piece, right? Especially now after me having a baby and gaining 100,000 pounds and, all of these things. And here I find myself needing to, restart my own journey, and so, and people have appreciated so much my willingness to be transparent and kind of just share, like you said, life happens and it's going to continue to happen and it's going to always win. And so I think me being open to allowing people to want that fitness piece from me, and also this marriage, or more than even marriage, is I push being true to who you are, and working on you. My whole thing is work on you, change the world. So for me, I think I made myself okay with doing both.
Awesome. Magdalena, Jocelynn, I'm curious about how things have evolved for you in your business as you've found out who you serve and so on and so forth. Do you want to speak to any of that? Yeah, Magdalena, take us
I'll
away.
just jump in. I 100% relate to both what you, Mark, and Brandi have said at this point, both in terms of having major resistance to wanting to niche, because I'm just this multifaceted, wonderful woman with so much to offer, right? As we all are. And I think that part of my journey has been learning to embrace all sides of me, and that all sides of me are welcome as well. And I don't have to fit into this kind of prescribed box. I have never fit into that box. Let me be clear. I left the United States when I was 18 years old. Like I've never done what I'm supposed to do. But that's also hard. It's lonely, and it can be also challenging to translate to an audience, so that they understand who you are and what you're about, especially when you work on social media as a large or your main marketing branch, let's say, because the internet is all about binaries. Literally, it's ones and zeros. So it's literally black and white. It's so hard to fit the gray, the nuance, the full spectrum of ourselves in there. And at the same time, I do think that there is something shifting kind of like in the zeitgeist, in like the general vibe of society around that. I think people are sick of boxes. I think people are sick of identity politics. I think people are here for authenticity, for realness, for human connection. getting goosebumps as I say that, therefore it must be true, right? And we're all like, yes. um, and I could keep going, but I'd love to hear Jocelyn's take on that, especially considering that you work in the social media marketing space.
Yeah, so I again didn't want to niche because same as everyone, I was like, marketing's so big and huge, and I want to work with every business and do every type of marketing. But then I realized there's like a million marketing agencies, and what am I really niched in and good at, and people will see that I stand out, and that was social media marketing. So I niched in on that, and that's when I really became successful. But like you were saying, it is a huge thing to niche down there, and so you kind of have to, in a way of selling, here's my product, here's who I'm for, here's my target audience. But I have found, like you were saying, the change in most businesses sharing who the owner is, or having kind of this combined account where you're selling your product, but you're also sharing your life, as many of you said, has really worked for people. Because in the past, the business could come out here and sell a great product and people would buy it. And now there's so much to offer. We want transparency as consumers. And so I actually think that's really powerful. We're moving more towards that. Yeah, you might be selling social media marketing, but then I'm open to sharing more about my life, things I love, my journey, other aspects. And a lot of times by doing that, mixing that in on my social, and also just, once you have the client or you're talking to someone, it leads to other opportunities to be like, hey, I need you in this area, or could you help in that area? And sure, we can work it out and help there. So, yeah.
Thank you for this. I'm glad that we've had a round here too where everyone's gotten the chance to come in. So like now we just keep things open. Magdalena, I actually took a note here. I was like, oh, people can pass it to each other. It's like that. So this, thank you. Like, I'm like, how do you get flow? And thank you. You just gave me another piece in here. So I'm someone who has these conversations from a very emergent standpoint. And there was a moment when all four of y'all just started nodding at the same time. So I'm very curious about this. We were talking here, there's a couple different times, but one of them was about Jocelyn, you just talked about sharing your life as well, right? So we used to like sharing the product, but also sharing your life as well. And there seemed to be like some good full head nods in that. I'm curious for you, when I think about that, I think about vulnerability. I think about being seen. I think about the question of like, but who would want to know? Right. And I would love to just like bring those three like topics into our space here for us to discuss. Um, I know outliers think about this here, and it's something about visibility that's more than just like, are you getting views? It's like, are they actually getting to know you here? Right. So I'll leave this one open. Is anyone feeling called to this? Jocelyn, I see you're unmuted, so why don't we jump in with you?
I can talk on that a little bit. So obviously with the Art of Conversation podcast I had, it was all about vulnerability and sharing a lot of the more spirituality side of me in vulnerable moments, which I was a little worried with the marketing business. Like, with this, do I look less? I don't know how maybe you would assume I should be perceived, but it actually did the opposite. And a lot of people, you would be surprised when they start talking to you as clients, they're like, I'm on this journey too, like this wellness journey, this spiritual journey, or I felt that too. And actually now I want to work with you more. So a lot of people will work with you because of who you are, more than even the service that you're providing. So that's kind of what I noticed with it. And it does work on social. And at the end of the day, as humans, like, we're here to connect. And yeah, we've taken that a little bit digital now, and that's the landscape we're in. I don't think it should only be digital, but we can bring that onto the digital platforms, and people want to feel deep connection with people. And I think we're just tired of just being sold things. So I really want to know that we have a connection, and then maybe, if you have value, I might buy from you or work with you.
You also asked Niiamah, did I get it right? Sorry.
You nailed it. You like, I saw you relaxing into that. There we go.
Yeah. I have an unusual name too. I get it.
Very good. Very good.
You also said, like, who would want to know? Everyone. Humans are intensely curious creatures, right? We all want to know all the ish about everybody. Look at how popular reality television is across every single genre. I'm old enough to remember when the MTV was the first to do reality TV with Real World. Do you guys remember that? And how addicting was it to watch these crazy lives falling apart? And I think that with this like kind of growth of the wellness industry as well, that I think people are like, how? And so they want to understand what that how looks like. And wellness is not just, it's like a lifestyle, right? If you're kind of in that space. So it's crucial. Plus, I think that we're doing business in new ways, or at least I hope so, because in my previous industry, in the music industry, like I was so burned out. I felt like I had to hide a lot of who I was. I felt like I was putting on a mask all the time, and it just wasn't sustainable. I was burning out like endlessly, and I wasn't having fun, even though it was supposed to be the fun industry, the entertainment industry. So I think that, yeah, all of that kind of is compounding into the fact that we're just looking for real connection, as everybody's saying, because that's what it really comes down to. Connection is how we grow love, and like that's what we are. Like, love is the expression. We're expressions of love, right? The I don't know how like much people here believe in like the divine or God or spirit, the universe, but we're all fragments of that walking around in material form, right? So I feel like we're all like, yes, which I love to see, because I think people would have thought I was a weirdo for saying that sort of thing a few years ago.
Well, there's this interesting juxtaposition, which is that so many more people are visible, and we are all carrying around these wounds that have us want to be safe in our visibility. We don't want to be cut out. We don't want to be left out. But it's our willingness to be vulnerable and actually reveal who we are that sets us free and creates the trust bond that drives the connections that build business exchanges, whether that's customer based or not. And you can see in Brandi's name of her business how fully expressed she is in this way. And it's just, when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah.
Yes, it's so interesting. You know, before I even had a business or was even thinking, I was not thinking about it. I was just sharing out on my socials. You know, let me tell you, I was sitting in my sister's stylist, sitting in, and I hope y'all can't hear this baby, but I was sitting in my sister's chair getting my hair braided. And she said, Brand, have you thought about sharing this, sharing your journey with people? And I was like, girl, no. You know, and she said, you know, I really think people would want to hear it. And I just started going live in my Instagram stories after workouts and I would talk about the workout and how I almost died. But then I would also just talk about whatever was going on in my life, you know, and these quick little videos I'm putting out. And from that, people stayed in my DMs like, Brandi, you should start a podcast. Brandi, have you thought about coaching? Brandi. And I think these people are crazy. And here I am.
I'm curious, how'd you get that name? Like, did you go through any changes?
Marc, let me tell you, like I just said, I was just making these random videos. And one day I've decided to make a video. I'm so sorry. I had been thinking about marriage. And so I decided I was going to make this video. And so in the video, I'm kind of just talking, and I have read this book. And so I'm just sharing this story on my Instagram stories. And I said, as I read the book in the video, I said, yeah. And I was like, man, Brandi, you a disrespectful ass wife. And then I said, you know what? That's going to be the name of my podcast. I was very unserious, and it stuck, and it stuck. So yeah, people love it, just like you did. People love it.
It hits like it's catchy, it's interesting, and like the topic of wife in modern society, what does that mean? What roles are we supposed to fulfill? I mean, my husband and I are massively going through this right now, because when I got pregnant, I declared that I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I, who am like boss bitch, super ambitious, declared I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And he was like, okay. But now that I'm 10 months into that, I don't actually. And I didn't really realize that, or it's been really hard for me to just like admit that. And so I've been a disrespectful ass wife. Like it's been really hard. Like we've had huge fights. And this morning I was like, why do we keep, why? And I asked him, like, are you mad at me because I made a different decision? And he's like, yeah, I feel like you went back on my agreement. And that, on our agreement. And I was like, oh, okay. So the mediator in me, conflict mediator in me immediately was like, oh, I get that. I get that he feels like I moved the goalposts, that he doesn't understand where he stands. Like, we have a whole lot to work out now, right? But yeah, I bet he'd be like, why are you sharing this with people? He's British. He's not a huge, like, he's not huge on vulnerability.
We have a tremendous opportunity now to renegotiate and take it to another level up.
Yeah, I really feel that. And for me, it's an opportunity. Conflict, I always see as an opportunity. I think it's exciting. I think that there's potential in conflict. I love conflict for that reason. It's part of why I do what I do, right? And so, yeah, I'm glad you say that, Mark, because I see it as that. I hope my husband will see it as that too. We have not finished this conversation.
Thank you for bringing us in on that. Like, because it's just real, right? And as you say this, you're like one of the things I love about like the way I like to play is that like if you're paying attention, the lesson is actually here in real time, right? So we started out this thing with Jocelynn talking about vulnerability and being able to like share your life as well, right? And like then we could have talked about it from like a very heady perspective. You know, I have noticed that there's a trend out there about like telling your vulnerability, like, but then Magdalena just comes in and just shares. You know, and we get this chance to be able to see. And Brandi goes and she shares. Like we get into this here, and there's an element of like just living in it. So it's not just an idea, but it's actually how we go through it. Outliers. I'm going to invite you here to just think about this. Think about like how smooth, how effortless, how open this conversation is, and think about your response to it. Did you immediately shut off? Did you say, "Oh, I want to know more"? Like whatever your response is a wonderful response. But you just had an opportunity to like experience that level of quote unquote vulnerability in real time. And how did you respond to it? And if you're afraid or you're holding back because you think someone else might respond in a different way, give them the grace and give them the gift that you just got from this part here. Anyone else have anything else they want to like to add on here? We're gonna keep jamming. I'm
Well,
liking
there's
how the conversation
skillful
is going.
ways to do that. There are skillful ways to do that, and there are clumsy ways to do that.
Tell us more
So
about it,
there
Mark.
is something to be said for being able to learn a little bit about how you speak to people before you just start, dumping out your vulnerability.
Tell us more. Like what are some of the distinctions that you're seeing here? Because like, and this could
Well,
be
the
from
first one especially is consent. Because, even at a professional level, emotional intimacy requires a level of consent because you don't know what people's nervous systems are handling at the moment. And there's a lot of different issues we're all trying to work out in the various cultural things that are going on in our life. So just saying to someone, hey, I want to share something a little deeper. Are you open to receive it? Is a powerful invitation for you to be received before you just like start talking about how things are going bad with, you had an argument with the guy that parked your car or whatever it is.
I would also like to add that, I got some feedback from my one of my sisters, and she said, while they were enjoying, listening and exploring with me and all of that, she said that she was always nervous about what I was about to say next. She said, Brand, I just never know what you're about to say. And for the people in our lives, our stories include other people, and so even that is important to consider.
Yeah, and I just want to tag on to that I would not have shared that piece about my husband and I having this kind of situation between us if I didn't trust that our marriage was really solid and if I wasn't in a good place emotionally, right? But because my nervous system is regulated, I got some sleep, I'm feeling really good. That was not a contentious interaction we had this morning, it was a good one. I can share that from a place of energetic integrity where I'm not dumping my like emotional baggage onto my listeners. I'm sharing my experience and holding that container and holding it with me. I'm not expecting anything out of any of you. And I think that that's a really crucial distinction, just to kind of like amplify a little bit what Mark was saying.
I agree with that. I also like when people are able to share their vulnerable moments and then you kind of had a little takeaway or your reflection, because even if I'm going through something a little bit different, I can relate to that. But the way you were able to say, this is how I see it, or this is where I'm moving, I think gives a little bit of value to your listeners, whether it's on a podcast or it's just in a conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all like because we can have this conversation and realize like there's I almost call it like oh, I know what this is. I think about keeping things simple, right? And I realize over time that there's like two different levels of simple. It's like there's simple, then there's complex, and then there's simplicity after the complexity. right? I got that from one of my mentors. We talked about the simplicity after complexity, and I'm like, before that, before the complexity, it can oftentimes come off as basic. Just be you, be authentic. Like, I'm just being my authentic self. It's like, no, you're just actually creating a havoc right now. You're not like actually here with people. You're not being vulnerable. When you said Magdalena dumping, I was like, oh, that felt like a difference, as opposed to like being in space, creating the space for a really great, authentic, like relatable share. Any other thoughts on that? Before we move from this year?
I can also tie that exactly around to what we also started talking about in terms of like niching,
Mm.
and like figuring out who is your audience and how to serve them and all of that kind of stuff. And when you said simple, um, that reminded me of one of my favorite acronyms these days, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And I think that because when I was starting this iteration of my entrepreneurial journey, thinking I had so much to offer, I forgot about that simplicity part. Actually, that's my every single entrepreneurial journey I've ever had until recently. I've always overcomplicated things, and I've always overthought them, and I've always overplanned, and it makes it incredibly hard for the consumer to relate and create that point of connection. Whereas if we keep it really simple, in terms of our offer, in terms of how we present ourselves, in terms of how we share our vulnerabilities or whatever, that's when people can find something that they can relate to in it. Because ultimately, we all have the same kind of sets of basic human needs that we can relate on, and that's what's really simple. So if we can really kind of always try to bring it back to that level of simplicity, that's, I think, how we can unlock success in however it is that we want to show up publicly.
Yeah, I love to keep the conversation around simplicity going for a bit here, mainly because I know that Outliers, we're multi-talented, multi-passionate individuals. And I'm curious for each of you, what's one thing in your business that you've actually recently realized, like, oh, I was just overcomplicating this, and here goes like where the simplicity lies for me. Um, I'll give you a chance to think about that for a second. I'll talk about me right now. So I had been doing a lot of different things with marketing for a long time. That there's a reason why we're having a podcast, because I realized like I love talking to people, and like it also like some of the people I talk to like actually end up like going deeper in my world, whether they become collaborators, whether they become clients, whether something else happens. It's there, and I'm like, well, what if I just like had a business or that was it? Like I just met people through a podcast, and then we just kept going and growing with each other. And like what's been interesting is that like there's a new level of complexity to do this right, but like overall on the larger scheme of things, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, like we're just gonna do this. We're just gonna go down this podcasting route. So that's something for me here. I want to give y'all a little bit of time as well, just to like think of something that would like really feel like a hit. What you got? What you got?
I'll talk about what my experience this year was.
Yeah, please, Mark.
In 2022, I tried to launch an AI outreach program through LinkedIn messaging, which was automated. And it did not get any kind of traction with people because it wasn't landing with any kind of real connectability at all. And so I struggled with that, and I didn't want to do outreach in LinkedIn, but I know that's where a lot of my key constituents are. And then at the beginning of this year, I started working with a writer, and he gave me a really powerful entryway into opening up now with cold outreach again. And it was a very complicated, 3 tiers of introductory statements, and then a 3-tier, discussion period after that, and then an offer. And it was brilliant because of the way it was so heart-centered, which is what I really wanted it to be, right? But it was also just so many layers of complexity to get through to the point where someone could actually like decide whether they wanted to have the conversation about working with me. And it failed miserably. And I was pouring myself into my KPIs. I was getting my, 27 outreach messages out, and then all my follow-up calls, and it was just a huge burden. And it wasn't working. And I just had to stop and take another look at what I was doing and simplify. And I realized that the complexity of the way that all the language had been constructed, because it was a writer who helped me, and it was all about writing, could be really just created into a much more clean expression. And I still was able to approach people authentically without trying to sell them on the first message with them. And that's working. And I've been able to be generous with my insights as a result. And that generosity is the key. It's simple. I say, hi, I like what I read about you. I'd love to read more about you. And then over time, a dialogue builds up. And then I say, hey, are you open to an insight I've had? And they generally get some value out of that.
Let's keep it going, Mark. I'm sitting here just like relishing in that. I'm like that feels really good. I love the genuine part. Like I'll talk about like genuine client creation, and a lot of times I'll say to people, I'm like everything works. Like, can you make it work for you? And what I'm hearing from you, Mark, is like through this process, you've taken something, you found out a place where you do excel, the outreach component of it, and you've continued to iterate on it to find more and more about like how can I make it work for me and get to the core of what actually matters. What would you elaborate on that? Where did I get
Well,
it
I'd
wrong?
say no, I don't excel at it. In fact, it's the most extremely challenging part of what I do. I'm really good one-on-one helping people create solutions in their lives. But in terms of marketing myself, I'm terrible. I'm really terrible. And I've been grappling with this problem for years. And I've been struggling with the dichotomy that I set up in this discussion, right? And I've landed in a place that feels good in my body that I can actually occupy with integrity and clarity. And that's where my powerful offering arises out of. It doesn't out of some strategy or some kind of like scale strategy. That doesn't work for me yet. So I'm working with this idea of how do I approach people genuinely at the scale that works for me because I'm a solopreneur and I'm doing this, and then actually create magnetism and interesting conversations that are built on integrity and real need that I can help and serve. And I'm on a discovery process. I'm by no means where I need to be financially yet, but I'm on a journey that really, really feels like the right journey for my core values and the way that I coach around EQ.
I can share a bit about something I'm going through actually as we speak that kind of piggybacks off of Mark a little bit. But I obviously doing social media marketing, I do that for all my clients. And so obviously I'm constantly studying all the strategies and numbers and analytics. And it's really clear for me, I think, when I'm looking at someone else to say, here's the strategy and here's what you do, because I'm not as emotionally connected to it. And luckily, I've just been able to have word of mouth kind of get me out there and get more clients that way. But it came to a point recently where I was like, okay, if I'm selling social media marketing, I probably should invest in my own social media for my marketing business, because at the end of the day, I want to grow more. And if people go back to it, they can't be like, this girl doesn't even post and she's telling me she's going to do it for me. So I've been on a journey to do that. And I realized I was putting it off so much because I study so much about this that when it came to myself, I was so attached to my own thing. I wasn't able to see clearly the way I could for clients. And I'm like, I need to implement everything. And it was just way too complex and it wasn't going to happen. So I kind of had a moment like Mark where recently I've been like, you know what is the core thing? Like, what is my core thing I want to do? I want to help people grow their business on social media. So at the end of the day, I've really just realized what works for me is I just need to show up. I know the pain point of my target, consumer, and let's just share some solutions and connect a little and build some genuine conversation. Usually they'll see a post and then it goes into DMs or whatever, and we start talking from there. And that works so much better than me trying to go out with some complex social media strategy and tracking analytics and all of this stuff, because when it's your own business, I think you're just way too emotionally attached to it in that field. So I'm on that same journey and figuring it out like Mark, but really came back to what's going to really work for me and stick for me and be something consistent that I feel good doing. And I don't feel like I'm just going everywhere and doing everything.
Yeah, I completely relate to a lot of what you both have said, and also can add that for me, that when I'm overcomplicating things, when I'm trying to do too many things at once, I've actually started to notice that it's a potential self-sabotage related to fear of success. Because for me, success in my mind and how we're very much programmed in our very capitalistic system is that success is related to hard work. And I have experienced really difficult to recover from burnout from hard work and hustling a lot. And so I'm trying to, Yeah, basically, like bringing that kind of self-sabotage, that trying to understand where my resistance to keeping things simple, to sticking to one thing consistently, to all of that, those kind of like more traditional, typical ways of doing business. I've always like, no, I'm too creative for that. No, I'm not. I mean, yes, I am, but also like really it's about the fact that I'm a little bit afraid of what it means to create large success. Like, what does that level of visibility mean for me as a person, for me to handle? What does that mean in terms of legal liability? What does that mean when I suddenly have like a 8 figures in my bank account? What do I do with it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I know what to do with it, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot to figure out. And a lot of like cultural, societal, and familial conditioning to work through. Um, and I'm sure we all have that and have kind of our own lenses on similar things, really. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, how ways that I have forced myself to keep things simple. And I will speak about, my podcast. Originally I really thought everything needed to be so fancy. I needed a studio, or I needed this equipment, or I needed all of this stuff. Brand, all you need is Zoom. That's it. Okay. And a room without talking kids. And even that is fine, because again, life is gonna life. Okay. And and just kind of allowing myself, like, Brandi, it's okay. Like, I've recorded things in my car, like, it's okay, sis. Keep it simple. It's fine. And I remember specifically one podcast episode, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say. And so I just started writing it out, And as I started that podcast episode, I was literally reading. And I told the audience, like, yeah, I'm sitting here reading this to you guys. And literally got responses from people that's like, girl, that's perfectly fine. Girl, I love that. You need to write all of them out. And here I am thinking, oh, this is so ghetto, and they like, girl, no, this is great, and so I think we really, like you were saying, Magdalena, we really just be messing ourselves up. Girl, calm down. It's okay. And just do it and stop making all these excuses.
Yeah.
Y'all are fantastic, y'all. Like I'm sitting here, it's cool. Outliers. I hope you're taking in some elements of this that play out, because what I want to say for you, for all of you here, is I want to say thank you. I want to thank you because uh, you're choosing to take what's on the inside and put it on the outside for us to see, and I think that part there, they often, like, we can hear from every single one of you and be like, wow, the successes that you've created, or the way that you think about things, like, that must be something. And you're being real about it, Marc, when you're like, hey, look, like, I'm still like, you'd use the word here, but you're like, I'm still figuring it out, more or less. You're like, this is better than it was before. It ain't there just yet, but like, I'm working it, and I really, like Outliers, I want to bring this into the space here. If there's any place where you feel like you need to have it all figured out, please use this as an example of, like, company, where it's like you're actually in amongst a group of people who will be with you as you continue figuring it out. I'm gonna start wrapping us up here in just a bit, but I want to see, is there anything else anyone wants to say on anything that we've talked about here today? Otherwise, we're gonna start wrapping up.
Just to highlight what you just said, I don't think anybody has it all figured out, and I think
Badoom.
that's like part of the myth of our, like, kind of the celebrity guru aspect of our culture, I guess, right? Like, we assume that the successful people did it overnight and they have it all figured. Nah, fam, they're like, at least I think the statistics show that there are like sorry, not 77 massive fails before an entrepreneur is actually hits on a successful idea. Like, how much time and money did someone like Elon Musk waste earlier I mean, maybe not him, because he happened to hit into the 1% circle really early, but Sarah Blakely is another fantastic example of a female entrepreneur who has just iterated and iterated to create success and fallen on her face many times. And I think that we have to remember that I have to remind myself of that, not to be standing on any pedestal preaching that, like, I'm 38 years old. It's not too late. I can create I can keep falling on my face 10 more times before I hit whatever it is. And also, my definition of success has transformed and changed over the years as I've grown, shifted, changed, failed, fallen, picked myself up, and started a family, quite frankly.
Yeah. I have a quick question because I feel like a lot of you guys are on your wellness journey and a lot of you are like leaders in that. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently. When you're, whether you have your own business or, you know, you're going kind of an unconventional route, productivity has been a huge word on my mind. It's like, I feel like we have a million things to do at all times. And I just don't know, as I've gone on my spiritual wellness journey, that I completely agree with the like a million tasks timetable, like living almost like a robot, just checking things off the list. But obviously we have goals we want to achieve, and you have to do things to achieve those. So I was wondering if you guys had any tips or tricks on how you guys be productive in a way that works for you and still maintain your life.
Go for it, Marc.
So there's the paradox of the checklist and how many things there are to get done. And then there's only this breath. And then whatever that checklist is, right now, you're just doing this. And it starts right there. And then the thing that really makes the impact is the consistency of where you invest your attention. So if you're getting off away from the checklist and this breath's over here on TikTok and this breath's over here on, then that's a loss of focus. And so being present with this thing that's right here in front of you and taking the time to spend time to develop your plan and then existing in the discomfort of those two things. I can't do it all at once, all of those things. That's probably the strongest thing I have to offer you, Jocelynn.
I like that.
I would say that I threw away the to-do list. I no longer keep a to-do list at all. And I used to be a slave to my to-do list, and that was what was keeping me most frustrated and unhappy and unproductive, ironically enough. When I do not have a to-do list, that means that I'm present in what it feels like my energy, where it feels like my energy is at, and I'm constantly checking in with myself, like what's really important. And focusing and putting my energy on what's really important, unless I'm really tired and having a bad day because I have a teething 10-month-old, and that's okay too. And then the to-do list goes out the window anyway, because life happens, as we've discussed, right?
Life happens there.
But really, I would suggest experimenting with tossing out the to-do list and allowing yourself to be a reminder of your priorities and people around you. Like, people will remind you when something is important and you need to get it done.
So we'll take it at this here. Like, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. Jocelynn, I'm glad you brought this in. I'm gonna have to keep expanding on this here. I'll have to put it in like another episode if anything, because we're coming up on time here. But y'all, this is fantastic. And Outliers, if any of you are listening right now, we have a way of growing this thing, which is just one person at a time. We have one conversation at a time. You have one person at a time. And so if there's something in this conversation that really struck you or you think would really be meaningful to someone in your world right now, my ask is that you reach out to that person and you share this conversation with them. Yes, you can do things on social. Yes, you can do things like your list, but like my big thing is like, if you can find one person to be like, yo, this conversation like was meant for us, take a listen, that would be phenomenal. All right, so go out there, give this gift to one person in your world. I want to continue the gift going here too. So what we're going to do is, the way that we wrap up our conversations is that we share something. What we're going to do is we're going to share an insight that we got from this conversation. And the way that I look at an insight, we've given a lot to Outliers. This is not about what are you walking away with, right? So share an insight that you got from this conversation. How are you going to be different as a result of this conversation? And if you got no insight, that's fine too. You can put that, you can just say that. Give us an insight. And then I want to do this. I want to give you all space here. We'll try and keep it a little succinct, but like, I want to give Outliers a chance to like see like what's something cool you're working on right now, like something that like maybe excites you, scares you a bit. And then how can Outliers like continue down the journey with you, whether it's related to that or just within your business overall. So why don't we start with Marc and then we'll go to Brandi. So this, just to
Got it.
recap, it's insight, something cool you're doing, and how Outliers can continue down the journey with you.
Wow. Well, the powerful insight of my list may not be as needed as much as I thought it was. That's a great one. Taking that with me. I'm also taking Brandi's name with me as like, it doesn't have to look like I think it needs to look. It needs to look like me. Something I'm deeply involved with is the refinement of how I deliver services. And I'm currently applying myself in the AI space and transmuting AI's technocraticness into human value. And there's a value proposition in there that a lot of AI people are scared about, that I'm actually working at how to leverage. And so that's where I'm really curious, is how to actually harness that for human benefit.
Thank you, Mark. And how can we continue down the journey with you? If, for any outlier that wants to stay in your world?
Come find me on LinkedIn and just DM me. And if there's something I can provide a solution for, let me help you.
Yeah, you know he'd be genuine about it here, y'all. So like that's a great thing. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you. Brandi and then Magdalena.
Yeah, I am going to take away a couple things from this conversation. And one, just the reminder that it's okay to start again. You know, failing is a part of it, and failing time and time again. You know, I think we just want to fail one time and then success, right? I think that it was really encouraging, and I needed that reminder to just keep getting up, Brand, keep getting up. And also thinking about different ways, different places to find audiences. You know, I would have never thought about LinkedIn. Like, duh, like there's people everywhere. And so I appreciate that. What was the other question? Hmm.
Yeah, how we stay with you, an insight you have, and then what's really cool in your world.
What's really cool in my world? You know, I have an 11-month-old. And I am, what's really cool is watching this miracle baby. My baby is an IVF baby. And so watching this miracle baby grow and reminding myself that, yes, I did put a pause on what I had going on. But wow, look at what I got. Look at what I got out the deal. And so just encouraging myself, it's all right, Brent, you're going to get it together. You're going to start back up and it's going to be and then how can people keep up with me? So like I said, my podcast, which y'all can all just start from the beginning, Disrespectful Ass Wife, and just look for me to relaunch with all of the goodness.
Thank you so much. I love how your project, like the thing that you're working on right now, is like, hey, it's me, by the way. Like, hey, just so you know, let me make sure my voice is heard. Awesome, Magdalena, and then Jocelynn. We'll wrap up for today.
I've really enjoyed being on here with all of you and enjoyed the flow of this conversation. So thank you very much. So that's the first thing I want to say. In terms of an insight, I think it is that life always happens, and like it's okay to let life happen. And sometimes I need that reminder because I'm really harsh on myself. Like I have a nanny for 8 hours a week. I got to get a bunch of shit done. But maybe also I can just like chill and let life happen. Do you know what I mean? And that's okay. It's so like deconditioning from hustle culture is so hard. It's so many layers. It's crazy. So that's one thing. And then something that I'm working on is re-entry into work life as a new mom, and with this really like strong pivot and focus on conflict resolution. And so for the first time ever, I'm about to start doing a bunch of cold outreach with pitch decks to different VCs and accelerators in the United States and in Europe. And that's scary feeling, and I've been holding off, but I'm ready. So that's one big thing that I'm working on. And for those of you who would like to continue the journey with me and find out more, I would love to chat with you, and I would love to hear from you. Probably email or Instagram. So my email, I'm sure, will be tagged in the show notes.
And then just make sure you also just say your Instagram, because some of us are just like pure audio and we're just like, great,
Yeah.
we're just going to move
So
off
my
that.
email is mj@magdalenajensen.com. And then my Instagram, I'm experimenting with a new handle. You feel free to give me feedback on whether you like it or not. Instead of my name, my handle is now Lead with Peace. Simple, snappy, hopefully memorable.
You got
So
it.
I would love to see some of y'all over in that space as well. And I hope to hear from you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Magdalena. And Jocelynn.
Yeah, this has been great, and I think the Instagram handle is very good from a marketing standpoint. But I think my biggest insight was we were talking to people that are business owners and entrepreneurs and successful, and they all have been vulnerable and real and human. And so I love moving into this. I feel like we're moving into this area where business is less corporate and like facade. And I think my biggest takeaway is that it's okay to be vulnerable and human and real, and that people will actually gravitate towards you through that. I'm really just working on, like I said, promoting myself on social media is now the way I do clients. So it should be a fun and creative endeavor and journey. So if you want to keep up with me, obviously my email is jocelyn@marketyouFactory.com, but also my Instagram is that marketing guru with an underscore. So that would be best.
Well, I am grateful for all of you. Thank you for making the time here. Thank you for bringing your experiences, and thank you for having experience. Like I really want to say that. It's not nothing you just take for granted. Y'all put yourself out there, and it made it possible for me to find you. Please keep doing your work, and know that you have the entire Outliers Guild and community behind you here. I'm wishing you all continued success, and remember to just be you on purpose. Journey on.
Ooh, I like that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.